Hey everyone, what's up? It's Rob Dodson. Welcome back to Season 2 of Polycasts. In today's episode, we're going to be looking at the auto-binding template element. It's one of those tags that not a lot of people know about, but it's super useful for wiring up your application. So let's check it out. So if you've worked with web components for a bit, you've probably already seen the new template element. The template element has a few really awesome features. First and foremost, any content that you place inside of a template is going to be completely inert, meaning this H1 that we have right here is not going to display on the page until we actually grab the guts of this template and stamp it out. Also, any elements that you have which require external resources, like an image tag, for instance, are not going to make any HTTP requests. Also, if you have script inside of your template, it's not going to execute, not until it's stamped out to the page. Some really handy features there. Now, normally, if you want to actually display that content, as I said, you're going to have to use some JavaScript to get all the guts onto the page. But if you're using Polymer, you can actually add an attribute to your template. You can say that your template is auto-binding. And what that's going to do is it's going to turn your template into what's known as a type extension custom element. Basically, what's happening is Polymer has already defined the definition for this element. It actually ships with the Polymer library. So when you boot up your application, it's there and ready to use. The auto-binding template is going to immediately take all of its content and stamp it out to the page. What's more, it actually allows you to use data bindings with this content. So let me show you an example of how you do that. Here I've got a template element, and inside I've just placed an H1 tag. And because I have this isAutoBinding attribute, I know that I can leverage the power of data binding. So the first thing I'm going to do is replace the content of that H1 with curly braces and define a scope variable. In this case, I'm going to call the variable message. Elsewhere in my JavaScript, I can select the template element using query selector, and then provide a value for that message variable. This value is then going to be piped right back to my H1 and show up as the text content on my page. All right, I know this is a really simple example, so let's switch over to our code editor and we can actually start wiring up some Polymer elements. So here I have a really basic application structure using core, drawer, panel, and some of the elements that we've covered in previous episodes. I've got links to those previous episodes down in the show notes if you've missed them. Now, if I pop open the browser to check out the structure of this page, you can see that it's pretty plain. We've got a core menu with a few buttons that we can click on, and we've also got the title of our application up there. Now, right now, nothing's really happening. So the first thing I can do is change the title of my app using a data binding to make it a little more interesting. Back in my editor, I'm going to create a template and give it an auto-binding attribute. I'm also going to give it an ID so I can reference it later using JavaScript. And then I can just go and cut and paste all the content from my application and drop it inside of this template. Next, I'm going to go down to where it says My App and replace the content with a binding, which I'm going to call heading. Then I'm going to open up my app.js file, and I'm going to query selector from my template using the ID that we set earlier. Once I've got a reference to my auto-binding template, I can just provide a value for that heading variable. In this case, I'm going to make it say, Hello Polycasters. Now when I refresh the page in my browser, you'll see that the title of the application has been updated to say, Hello Polycasters. Now, that's kind of cool, but the menu itself still doesn't really do anything in our application. So let's change that next. Back in my editor, I'm going to set a selected value of 0. This is, again, just another scope variable that I'm creating. In my index file, I'll find my core menu and change its hard-coded selected value, which right now is 0, to that scope variable called selected. I'm also going to go down to the container for my page, where it right now just has some sort of generic filler content that says site content. I'll update that with some text, which is going to actually print out the page that we're looking at using that selected scope variable. Switching back to the browser, if I refresh the page and start clicking on the different elements in my menu, you'll see that the number is updating to let me know which page is selected. Now here's a little pro tip for you. As you're working with the auto-binding template, if you need to access any of its contents using JavaScript, you're going to want to listen for its template bound event. And the reason is because the auto-binding template stamps out all of its content asynchronously. So to demonstrate how to do this, I'm just going to log the core menu element itself to my console. The way to do that is to first add an event listener to my template. And I'm going to be listening for that template bound event, so I know when all the content has been stamped to the page. Then in the callback function, I'm just going to grab a reference to the core menu, because now I know that it is in the document and available. And then I'm just going to log it out to the console. Now back in Chrome, I refresh the page and open up the DevTools, and you can see down here at the bottom that core menu gets logged out immediately, and it highlights the core menu element on the page. So now you're ready to go add data binding to your own application. In the next episode, I'm going to combine the auto binding template with an element called core pages so we can actually dynamically swap around the content in our application. Definitely stay tuned for that. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.